Funny thing how time works. That 1.5 year between Far From Home and WandaVision was long, but because of the pandemic, to me at least, it never felt that long. I understood why things took so long to come out. That virus hurt Hollywood as much as it did normal people. But it didn't matter because we had different things on our minds. But now that everything is slowly opening up and getting back to normal, that month between the Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Loki, it just felt as long, if not longer. Damn you, TVA. Or am I just a spoiled brat who constantly wants to suck on the teeth of Marvel Studio for new content? Nah, it's a TVA, right? Hello and welcome to the review of Champions. We are going to cover the Loki series, and today we start with episode 1. And with me is a big brand new panel, and I'm going to introduce them to you right now. First up, a special shout out to our new addition, joining us from the MCU Bleeding Edge, Jeff. How are you?
I'm doing okay, and it's really nice, and I really appreciate having an opportunity to jump on here with you guys.
Okay. Of course, we also have some older members here. Founding father of this podcast and review channel, Mr. R.R.R. Stanton.
It's fantastic to see you guys. Like you said, it really does feel like it's been forever. I don't know how a month feels like it's a year, but it really does. But glad to see you guys. Glad to be here. Looking forward to talking about it.
And from the great beyond, voice only, but he is here bringing the stuff we need, comics, Mr. Lord Deathman.
That's right. You're listening to the sweet sounds of death. And I just want to take a minute to say, listen, the champions are back. And I couldn't be more thrilled about it. So let's get this podcast started.
Yeah, okay, but first we have two other members here, all the way down under, and on my screen he is down under, Mr. Shadowbiz, or should I say Fisto's Gauntlet, or whatever you're called right now.
Yeah, whatever. Hi everyone. Yeah, it feels like a very long time, like I've been like an ice cube. Now I'm melted, and we're all here.
And last, but certainly not least, the man with all the TV knowledge and pop culture knowledge, Mr. Taylor First. How are you, man?
I am great. Time is relative. Let's talk about Loki.
Okay, let's talk about Loki. But before we start, I would like to ask you all to hit that like and subscribe button and maybe even join our forum. You can find it on sakar.freeforums.net. And be sure to check out the video content of the MCU's Bleeding Edge, made by Mr. Jeff Sloboda. We are currently doing a MCU review series over there, and it's a joint effort from the Podcast of Champions and the MCU's Bleeding Edge, and we are very much enjoying that right now. Well, Loki's episode 1. Who'd like to go first? Mr. Lord Deathman, why don't you go first? What did you think of this episode?
I thought it was great. I have had a huge itch to get back into the MCU. So the break between Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Loki did feel like it went on forever. And I was kind of basically gorging on whatever promotional material they'd put out for any other project, Eternals, Black Widow. I was like, I'm just going to have to take these scraps until we get to Loki. But it was well worth the wait. And I have to say, I really, really, really liked this episode. It had a few downsides for me, which I'm sure are going to come out in the conversation. But overall, production design, performances, visual effects, the whole thing really makes sense to me in terms of continuing Loki's story. And this one episode really justifies continuing that arc when a lot of people kind of said, well, you know, Loki, he died. What else is there to say? I think there's a lot more to say if you just go by the first episode of this new series and a little bit of the second episode, which I got to see. I'm not flexing too hard there, but I had a hookup and got to watch about 10, 15 minutes of it, and it gets even better based on what I saw in the second episode. So that my take on it is fantastic. Can't wait to grade it, discuss it.
Don't you just hate it when Dev is teasing you? Taylor, any comments?
I thought it was a great start to the series. great setup. My favorite parts was learning about the TVA. I was not familiar with the organization from the comics, and the first episode did a great job of setting it. I love the aesthetic, the look of it. I love the technology, how it was all kind of retro, kind of looked like came from the Jetsons, that sort of retro future technology. I also like that it really established Loki's mindset at this point. They showed him his past and his future, and so we know that's where he is at mentally right now. So I think it was a great start for this series.
Okay. Yeah, when it comes to starts, Jeff, let me ask you, and of course you can talk about what you thought about the episode as well, but if you compare this first episode to WandaVision and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, how does this come out to you? Is it better than those two, or on the same level, or better?
It's funny
no
that you
worse?
mentioned that, to be completely honest with you, Grandmaster, because that's exactly what I was writing down in my notes right now, like before you asked me the question. So, yeah, I would definitely rate that first episode above and higher than I would WandaVision's opening episode or the Falcon and the Winter Soldier's opening episode. I feel like overall, as an episode itself, if you want to like really break it down, I feel like they really gave us a lot of complexity in that first episode of Loki, like a lot to work with the story. And like I just think like, the same, I agree with everybody else basically that it was just a great start. Just like, I mean, it really really revs up my MCU motor, just like Lord Deathman said in terms of, giving us some content, like after this break. So, I mean, yeah, I'm very high on it. I thought it was great. And I think that Owen Wilson is great. He's great on Loki. I love him.
Yeah, I agree with that. Hey, Biz, that Owen Wilson, Tom Hiddleston dynamic, or Mobius Loki dynamic, did that stood out to you as well? And what did you think about the episode?
Yeah, I thought they had great chemistry. It's always good seeing Owen Wilson. You're gonna straight away see some like he's known for like comedy and wittiness. So yeah, there was no it was good. But apart from the episode, I mean, with the episode overall, I thought it was. I mean, I liked it. It was a decent setup, but I felt like it was a little bit of a letdown. But I'll get into that later. Like there was something missing, but it was a great episode overall.
Arch, was it lacking for you too? I know the answer to that question, but you can say it yourself.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. No, of course it wasn't lacking. I thought it was great. So this one, you guys were just talking about how it compares to maybe WandaVision or Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I thought all of them were kind of going after a slightly different thing. I compared this one a little bit more to WandaVision in that it's going for this, bizarre sci-fi sort of vibe. But this one's a little bit more dark. I compared it to something like Dark City as a film. Just like this dark sci-fi sort of thing, and I thought they really hit that. When I was reading comics growing up, things like old school Silver Surfer Volume 2, or even more recent like the Guardians of the Galaxy series that the films are more based off of. I love those just weird, bizarre scenarios that they'll get into. They come across some alien planet or something just weird, and they let the story just play out, and it's really intriguing to me. I mean, I really love the more real world setting that Falcon and the Winter Soldier has, but these like bizarre sci-fi settings are just really cool to me. I love them. You guys know I love the lore whenever they present any sort of lore in the MCU, and we got some of the deepest stuff we've gotten in terms of the overall history of the MCU. There's this ancient time lore we've never heard about, like these multiple timelines that somehow link together. I don't know where they're going with this, or how the Time Lords themselves are involved. I'm wondering if they really solved the situation, or if they created a war to their own ends, maybe, and we're going to figure out what they're actually doing. I don't know, but either way, I'm really super into it, really super into the vibe. And I love how they really kind of divided this episode up, where they started with this intriguing premise, and then sort of let the second half of the episode be this really deep personal story about Loki. So I'm really into it. I can't wait to see what they do with it.
Okay, I'm just gonna throw this out there. What I read, and I don't necessarily agree with it, but I want to bring up one big complaint of the fandom after episode 1, and that was the Infinity Stones were reduced to paperweights during the episode. And What do you guys think about that? Because some people say it takes away from the Infinity Saga and stuff like that. So, Taylor, you want to say something about that?
It takes away from nothing. All right. All it does is show you that inside of the TVA, there are no powers of any kind other than what the TVA has. That's all it does. It just establishes what the situation is inside of that location, and it certainly doesn't take away from the greatest movie franchise of all time leading up to this. So yeah, I saw that comment a couple places too. They're idiots. Sorry.
Lord Deathman, you also raised your hand.
Yeah, I felt just the opposite about that. So I haven't really looked at the commentary in social. I haven't read any of the reviews. I haven't gone to talk to YouTube players about it. But wow, that's a hot take from the fandom. I felt just the opposite because I felt like when you get the Infinity Stones rendered into these powerless or useless baubles because they're outside of time, it kind of raised the stakes for me. The stones were kind of used to half all of existence or wipe out all life. But I feel like Loki, the stakes are even higher than that. It's like multiversal, right? Like the end of existence. It just made it seem like we're just going to a higher plateau for me personally. So that was my take on it.
Bish, you also raised your hand.
Yeah, I thought it was a little like I understand why they did it. It establishes how powerful the TVA is, but on the other hand, it was like a little bit gimmicky, like almost like a kind of like here are the Infinity Stones. Let's have a laugh at it. But so I'm kind of like mixed on it. So yeah.
Jeff?
I mean, I just thought it was interesting. Like, I mean, I don't really, I see no reason based off my connection with the first episode and with Loki. I see nothing that I really want to criticize at all. Like, I really feel like everything that I saw, I thought was all good. Like, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fun watching it. And as far as the Infinity Stone deal, like with them being paperweights, it doesn't really faze me because, I mean, look, like the MCU is supposed to be going in a different direction at this point. Like, Captain America's gone, Iron Man's gone. Like, like the Infinity Saga is over. So, like, at that point, I mean, why not, like, play around with something like that? If it's the kind of gimmicky, sure, but like it didn't really faze me.
Yeah, I'm with you, but I just wanted to have this discussion on the panel. Arch.
Yeah, I don't think it's. I wouldn't define it as gimmicky. I think it's an establishing shot, sort of. It's setting up where this is and how this area of reality functions. So I mean, I guess it's slightly. I mean, I guess you could look at it as slightly jokey in terms of they're using it as paperweights, but really it's just more defining that these people don't look at these artifacts as having any sort of relevance in their realm, wherever their realm is, and I'm sure we're going to get more definition of that. But it's not like it's just a joke or something like that. It's defining how this place works.
Yeah, I agree. Lord Deathman, you had additional comment?
Yeah, I just also wanted to say it kind of gives a sense of scale for the way things are playing out, right? So again, when you were dealing with Thanos and we were going through that long saga, we saw the consequences of one universe and the fate of all of the populace of that universe. But it really has me psyched up that the Infinity Stones could be useless in this particular context, because it makes me wonder, like, wow, what level are the TVA operating on? Like, how have they insinuated themselves in the history? What things have they repaired? What things have they broken? Or are they responsible for, like, the shape of reality as it is? So not finding a lot of credibility in that, in terms of maybe people are upset with how it was done in terms of for a little bit of comedic effect. And that was one of the low points. If the only low point that I had about the episode is that I think it made some quick tonal shifts from comedy to then trying to be weighty when talking about Loki's sort of personal situation, how he's kind of a failure as a would-be conqueror. And then you immediately go into not slapstick, but a little bit of undermining it with some of the comedy there. So I do hope that they kind of iron out the tone a little bit more as we go on with the series. But other than that, I think they really stuck the landing in terms of an introduction to this scenario. A lot of complicated ideas got dropped on us there, a multiverse and variants. And it was done in a way that, you know, people of all levels, whether you're comic book deep or whether you're just a casual, could kind of get those complicated ideas. So, yeah, really set up a sense of scale when they kind of told us that the Infinity Stones are just costume jewelry here at the end of time.
Arch?
Yeah, just real quick for just food for thought. To whatever extent it's quirky and funny that they're just using them there for paperweights. That's also the moment that breaks Loki. That's the moment where he realizes, okay, I can't just, you know, enforce my will here. I can't just do whatever I want here. I'm going to have to go with the flow. That's the moment that breaks him and reveals his true humanity in this episode. So I think it's a lot more deep than it is quirky, but that's just me. Perhaps, I don't know.
Yeah, to continue with Loki and that second half of the show, I think it's one of the most wonderful character stuff they did with him in the MCU, actually, where he sees his future and what happened, and he realizes a lot of stuff. And Loki 2012, which he basically is immediately turns into Loki 2018, and realize what his family actually means to him. It was great stuff. I had a little complaint about this episode, and that's when you see the Gobi Desert, and later in the TVA when you see the city. I thought it felt to me a little bit fake. The CGI was not really at movie level at that moment. Jeff, what would you say about that?
I think that's fair. I think that's a fair criticism. I could see how you would potentially, you know, visually perceive that. Like, I didn't really get that gist from it personally, but maybe, you know what, like, I've been so stoked by the visuals that I've seen in the trailers for Loki that, like, for me, I almost, like, I was so optimistic going into the first episode that, I mean, what they presented to me, I found very pleasing. Personally, I did.
It was pleasing, but especially when you look at the when they stand there on the gallery and they overlook the TVA city as it is. It feels a bit cartoonish to me. Or am I the only one who had that feeling? Anyone else?
It felt a little over-designed. I wouldn't say cartoonish. It felt like, okay, somebody pulled out all the polygons for this particular shot, but I didn't think it was cartoonish, and I didn't think that the VFX were lacking, but I just spent a ton of money on a giant television, so maybe it makes a difference. I don't know.
Yeah, I watched it on my laptop and later on my TV, but especially on my laptop when I saw it the first time, it felt a bit like that. Biz, you also had something to say about it?
Oh no, yeah, I just agree with you. I just didn't find it to be that realistic in terms of, like, the rest of the design of the show. Like, it didn't really mesh well.
Yeah, it stood a bit out. I also had it with the Gobi Desert a bit, and later with that TVA city. But yeah, maybe it's just me, and maybe I'm just being too overly critical. I can see Arch's mouth goes like this already. Sorry, Arch. Does anyone else want to say something about this episode? What we didn't discuss yet?
I will say that whatever shortcomings that VFX might have had, one, I love the effect when people step through time through those doors, those flat doors where you kind of beam into your new time frame. And I totally love the analog feeling of the world when you're in the TVA with regards to a lot of paper, inkjet printouts, those kinds of typewriter type machines that they're using to transcribe things. I think they really nailed the sort of analog feel of it, and it feels right for the TVA and an organization that's kind of composed of a lot of bureaucrats.
Yeah, now that you mentioned those doors, there is and I'm not going to cover it in Cannonfodder because it's too little, but there is some fans claim, and I saw saw it, and it really could be that Peggy Carter has been spotted in Loki.
What?
Did you guys hear that? No? There's a
Yes,
moment
I
when
saw it.
Loki escapes, and he stands in a hallway, and in the background you see a door opening up, and an agent comes in with a woman, and she does resemble Peggy Carter, but it's too fast, you cannot really see it. But she seems, it looks like Peggy Carter. Let's just say it like that. She resembles Peggy Carter, but you guys didn't spot it yet, or hadn't heard it.
I've seen that. I have seen that. I'd be surprised if they go anywhere with that, but it's an interesting little detail to possibly run with. As kind of a quirky little side theory. If I had to put money on it, I doubt that becomes anything. But
Me too.
It'd be fun. It'd be fun if they did that on purpose, just to kind of get people thinking about stuff.
Yeah, but knowing Marvel, they never put something in the background like that for no reason. But yeah, but no, okay. Then I think it's time to rate. Archer's favorite part of the show, but I will start with you, Biz. How do you rate this first episode of Loki?
I'll give it a 7 out of 10.
Okay, no elaboration, I guess.
It's just like I said before, on the board, like Loki just felt off. It just felt weird. I understand where he was and he didn't have his powers and all, but it's just that it was a little bit out of character, because we know Loki as some like super like arrogant guy, and as soon as like he enters like in a different situation, that kind of how would you say, that kind of like this arrogance just fades away. Like his skill, like his I don't know, his brain like suddenly goes down. I don't know, but it just seemed off to me. That's all.
Taylor, how do you rate this episode?
I give it a 10 out of 10 for a first episode. I think they hit all the right points. I think they did a great job of establishing the situation as well as the characters going forward. So I definitely give it a 10 out of 10. And if I don't like to, rank things, but since we talked about it a little bit, I will say it is just slightly better than the first episode of Falcon and Winter Soldier. But it's not as good as WandaVision. But I really believe that WandaVision was actually written for me, so nothing's going to be better than WandaVision.
Yeah, I kind of see why you say that. Lord Deathman, I want to hear a rating from you, actually.
Yeah. I'm giving this a 9 out of 10. And the only reason it didn't get a perfect score is, again, because I thought some of the tonal shifts were a little abrupt. That being said, minor. All of the pluses above and beyond that make this a standout pilot, my favorite out of all of the pilots of the Disney series. And another thing that really has primed me for this show is it doesn't deal with something as weighty as someone's grief, like WandaVision, and then we're not sort of dealing with pseudo-political issues like the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And I love that stuff while it was happening. But Loki is kind of where I live and breathe as a fan, in that this is purely about world building. We're going to see some established rules get broken. We're going to see some new rules get made. We're going to talk about concepts that are really wild in fantasy and science fiction. And for me, I couldn't be more thrilled about a series that's going to do that for the next remaining 5 episodes. So it's really a 9 out of 10 experience for me. Saw a tiny bit of episode 2 where we're getting new characters already. There's a little bit of 80s nostalgia in there that you guys will pick up on. And there's also, there's a little bit more comedy going on there. And I hope we can kind of, I don't want to jettison the comedy, but I certainly do want to make sure that it has its place. But the biggest reason for me giving this series this particular grade, past everything I've just said, is Tom Hiddleston and the character of Loki. He's just bringing his A game to this, and he is such a goddamn good curator of this character. You can tell that he knows the history of the character, obviously because he's been playing him for so long, but that he cares about it as well. I think in terms of depowering him and putting him into a different context and seeing how the god of mischief is going to respond when he can't do magic, when he doesn't have daggers that appear out of thin air, when he's sort of, couched by these much more powerful people and having to get to the core of himself and look at what he's all about. I thought that expression of the character is great, and I would love to see more of it. Not sure how the fandom's feeling about that, but I kind of like this new powerless Loki. I feel like it just adds to the conversation about the character. Yeah, looking forward to the show.
Okay. Great comments, as always. I'm going to apologize to people watching this video right now because I'm going to Arch for his rating, and he never plays ball.
I'm
Arch.
going to apologize for? No. No, he's totally right, as you will soon see. But I just want to point out that this is the show nobody knew they wanted, and I'm loving that it seems to be off in a really good direction, because I think most of us, when we first heard of this, were really, what are they doing with this? But it seems to be great, and I'm really enjoying it. I think the best part for me is that it works on a ton of different levels. Like, it's a deeply personal story, but it's also this major overarching like cosmic hugeness that we're waiting to see where it goes. But they also play that, as we brought up on the MCU's Bleeding Edge. This wasn't my comment, but it's being treated like you're walking. This huge cosmic story is being treated as though you're walking through a DMV office. It's so bureaucratic and red tape, and you've got to take numbers for stuff, and they're asking you to sign off on this massive stack of paperwork of everything you've ever said in your life. Like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's really quirky how they're playing this huge, massive story, and then also you get this deeply personal Loki story. So I think it's great. I have no idea how to rate things. I don't like numbers like that, so I'm giving it 3 Time Lords out of at least 2 Lokis and maybe more. So we'll see where that goes.
Okay, thank you for that. Taylor, before I go to Jeff, you had a side comment?
Yeah, just real quick, I completely agree with Arch on that. One of my favorite parts was after he had to take the number, he had to go through the, I don't know what you call it, the maze.
Yeah.
Even though he was the only person there, like at the airport, you have to go through the velvet ropes thing. just classic.
Okay. Last but not least, Jeff, let me get your rating for this show.
Well, I'm going to agree with Arch, and I'm going to agree with Lord Deathman, and just be very short. And I'm not going to overplay the fact that, as far as I'm concerned, this whole deal with Tom Hiddleston being asked to play a character that's already evolved his arc once, you know what I mean, and died and everything, and now he's back to the Loki of 2012 Avengers or whatever, and he's starting a new evolution, like in the MCU. You don't see, like, as an actor, that's got to be rough to play that as a character. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that it's a good point to make that that Tom Hiddleston acted his ass off in that episode. Like, at least I felt he did. You know what I mean? Like, he's definitely a talented character actor without question. And look, I'm not like a huge, massive fan of Loki overall in the MCU. He's not one of my, favorite characters or whatever. But in a situation where, like Arch said, we didn't really know what to expect from this series, really, I feel like as a start, this episode was just like outstanding.
Okay. That's a good rating. Outstanding.
Oh, 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10, without question, Grandmaster. 10 out of 10.
No, that's fine.
I'm with Taylor.
It's total freedom here. So if you you can take a page out of Archer's book if you want to. So, but I actually agree with the panel. I thought it was a solid, good first episode. It was a great setup. It's for me, it's the best first episode of the Disney Plus series so far. When it comes to Marvel, and I would rate it like 8 out of 10 because it was a bit of a setup, and the second. The show obviously still needs to evolve the story, but overall, very solid start, very good start. And very curious what will happen, especially after those teasers from our Lord Deathman. Well, that brings up our favorite part of the show, I guess. It's time for our section called Cannonfodder.
Cannonfodder.
And in Cannonfodder, we discuss those wild fan theories we find online. If you see this video and you have a fan theory you want us to discuss, please send it to us, and we may even do a little shout out to you. But for the first episode, I've been checking online what's going on in the fandom, and I found three fan theories we'll discuss right now. And we start off with the first. I'm just gonna ask the panel if they're gonna buy, sell, or hold on a fan theory. And the first one that immediately came up and was very popular among the fans online, who is going to be the big bad of the show? And a lot of people say, well, we may get Jonathan Mayers, Kang the Conqueror. So, starting off with Arch, are you going to buy, sell, or hold on this fan theory? And why?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and buy that. Obviously, a lot of stuff could happen, but I'll buy it because time is going to come up. It's obviously a big thing here. They're wrapping up a bunch of different timelines. I think that's very appropriate. I think we might wind up seeing whoever Loki is going after, even if it's a different version of himself, may actually be more of a anti-hero, or at least somebody that's on the right path to solving something that's actually going on that we're not aware of yet. So I will buy that.
Biz.
I'm going to hold. Even though Kang is like a major character and he deals with time, obviously, there could be someone else. But he definitely could cameo. But like maybe just with that headboard, like in the middle, behind the judge, if that's him. But yeah, I'll hold.
Lord Deathman, is Kang the Conqueror gonna show up and be the big bad of Loki the show?
I'm gonna sell, and it's a short sell, so I'm borrowing the money to fund this. Yeah, I'm short selling on this. I want it to be true. I so desperately want Kang the Conqueror to show up in Loki. That would fulfill all of my headcanon fantasies as since the days of youth when I first got into comic books. He's one of the first characters I encountered as a villain. He single-handedly defeated the Fantastic Four while reclining in an invisible sofa. Kang is awesome, and I don't think people out there have an inkling of how awesome Kang is going to be. But when I think about it logistically, when they filmed Loki, how Quantumania is shaping up right now, it just doesn't seem realistic that we're going to get that level of connection between the two. But so I am selling officially, but have to say, reserving the right to change that. If Jonathan Lee Majors wants to, get in the makeup and do a fast stinger for the last episode.
Okay, Lord Deathman with a sell here, but not a really strong one. Jeff, what do you think? Buy, hold, or sell on Kang the Conqueror as the big bad of Loki the show?
Normally, I would sell, but in this one case, just because Ravonna Renslayer is in the Loki series, and we already saw her as a judge, and that is Kang's love interest from the comics, at that point, I've got to hold, because who knows? I mean, it wouldn't be a bad idea, I don't think, for the MCU and Kevin Feige to go ahead and put Kang in place and as a moving piece and go ahead and reveal him in Loki. I think it would be good fan service. Like Lord Deathman kind of, I think would agree with me on that.
Yeah.
And I think that just where the current energy is with the MCU after the pandemic, that we've dealt with and everything, and the stalling of production of projects and the delays of the releases and everything, I feel like the MCU and Marvel Studios could use a shining moment, like a big bang kind of deal here in this Loki series where they go ahead and do a reveal of Kang. I wouldn't put it past Kevin Feige, so I'll hold.
Yeah, it was teased by Kevin Feige earlier this week that Loki would really be a very important show for Phase 4 and will shape it up. And yeah, that's why I wanted to put this theory in here because personally I hold on this theory, but I definitely see it as a possibility. Taylor, I'm gonna do you two in a row. First, you can buy, hold, or sell on this theory, and then I'm gonna give the next one straight to you as well.
Okay, well, on this theory, I'm with Lord Deathman. I'm gonna sell at this point. I don't think he's gonna be the big bad. Will he be revealed, a cameo, or mentioned, or set up for the future? Possibly, but I at this point, I don't think he's the big bad of this show.
Okay.
So sell.
We've got a divided panel here with a tendency to sell and hold, but you never know. Hashtag Team Arch. I'm gonna move on to our second theory, and that deals with the TVA. Fans online have been saying that the TVA might not be what they claim they are, and they could actually hide a big secret and maybe even be malicious. Taylor, what are your thoughts on that? Buy, hold, or sell on the TVA being not what they are and being a bad thing?
There's always a chance of a twist like that, but at this point, I'm going to sell that one too. I don't think so. I think they are what they are, and what they are is not good or bad per se at this point. They're bureaucrats. They're a bureaucracy. So I don't think at this point that there's going to be a twist that they're somehow the big bad or they're doing evil things behind the scenes. So sell again.
Okay. Arch, what do you think about the TVA possibly being malicious? There's going to be a big twist with them.
I think just I think there's going to be a big twist. So I'll buy, and I'm getting the feeling like I may just be off to a bad start in my buy or sell this year, but we'll see. I don't know. I kind of alluded to this earlier. I think maybe this whole idea that the merging of the previous timelines as being some benevolent thing that the space lizards, as Loki referred to them as, did. It may have been more that they started this war in order to do it for their own purposes. I don't know. I feel like something's going to come out of this that we didn't expect. So yeah, I think it'll be pretty twisty, and I'll go ahead and buy that.
Okay. Well, Jeff, buy, sell, or hold on this theory?
I would have to say that I would probably hold on this one too, just because. Do I think that the TVA is going to be like the villain of the series? No, I don't. But I do think there's a possibility that there could be, some like infectiousness almost from Loki, where he's going to basically kind of like, make some of the TVA employees question their duties or question like the way that they like religiously like believe in the TVA. You know what I mean? And like the hunters, like they look at Mobius as like a god. You know what I mean? Like that's how they view. That's how Hunter B15, that like African American woman that we see right off the bat in the intro of the TVA. That's how she looks at like Mobius as a god. So what I think is possible is that we could see a poisoning of the well with Loki, where because he's the god of mischief, he could very easily cause some of these TVA employees to kind of wake up and be like and question the motives and like the ideology of the TVA a little bit, and that could potentially maybe cause like there to be like some quasi villainous behavior that could happen.
Okay. I like what you're saying. Biz, buy, sell, or hold on the theory that the TVA is actually malicious.
I'm going to hold on this again. I think it's suspicious, and then also like with what Jeff was saying, I mean, there's Kang's love interest. I mean, if that doesn't raise red flags, what will? So, yeah, I'll hold.
Okay. And Lord Deathman, last but not least, on the theory of the TVA actually being malicious, and it's going to be a big twist in the show. What are your thoughts about that?
I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to parlay my profits from the short sell on Kang, and I'm going to buy.
Wow.
on the TVA being somehow not malicious. I want to do a slight tweak on the fan theory and say a lot of what you've seen from the TVA in terms of their whole mythology is really dogmatic. We're protecting the sacred timeline, right? And they really want you to buy this. I think there's something more to the narrative. And the variant Loki, well, we're dealing with variant 1, but variant 2, his war with the TVA seems really personal. We're talking about stabbing TVA officers. We're talking about grabbing resets. I think he knows something, he or she, I'll leave that open, knows something that everyone else doesn't know about the TVA. So I think it's a buy, and I'm actually going to go in on a strong buy. I'm hoarding TVA is somehow dirty.
Okay, good that we have a divided panel, because that makes our final review with when we do a cross check on how we did very interesting. And funny you mentioned something in your little buy, sell, or hold there, because my third fan theory is actually about the person they are hunting. Mobius says it's Loki, but some fans came up after a picture that actually Haunted Knight shared on the board earlier this week, where it's clearly showed that Loki's sex is fluid, and they claim the hunted Loki is actually female from another timeline. Biz, going to you, and you know why. Is it a gender swapped Loki from another timeline that they are hunting?
I think it's possible. Yeah, I'll buy that. I'll buy that.
Buy that. Okay. Jeff, what do you think?
I'll buy it, but it not because like the concept of gender fluidity is a tangible like concept, because it's not. But not that I want to get into it, but no, Loki, look, it's a simple thing. If you know the comic books, Loki can change into anything. Like, you know what I mean? He can become he can become an animal. He can become a bat. He can become a lizard, a snake. He can be a woman. Like, that's just part of what he does. That's part of his trickery and like his magic and whatnot, is that he's capable of doing that. He's almost like a warlock in a way, so I mean, at that point, it would surprise me if there isn't a female version of Loki on the show at some point, even if it's not the Loki that's killing the hunters or whatever. I think we will see it. I think we might see Kid Loki at some point too.
Arch, what do you think?
Yeah, I'll buy that. And just to throw this out there, because I mentioned it on the board, my take on like alternate reality versions of this, or they are effectively kind of like your fraternal twin. Like, I just mentioned this briefly on the board. Like, if your, we'll call it a conception event, had gone slightly differently, you would have a completely different individual, and this person could be anything different. I've seen fraternal twins that look nothing like each other, so you could, of course, have like opposite sexes and all kinds of different things. It's not the same person. It's a different person who may be largely genetically related to you. But whatever, yeah, I think that you'll probably wind up with a female Loki here, and yeah, I'll go with yes. Bye.
So basically what you're saying is that in another timeline, 6 women are recording a Loki review right now. Okay.
That's right.
Good, I like that.
We wish. Lord Deathman, what do you think?
I'm gonna
sell
buy.
or hold on the female Loki, and I know you've seen a part of episode 2 already, so you may have some knowledge we don't.
Yeah, I am trading on some knowledge. And again, guys, I didn't see the full episode of part 2. It was like 10 or 15 minutes, but based on what I saw there, I'm buying on this one. And I do want to get slightly political just for a second. I think as comic book readers and kind of fans of sci-fi and fiction, the idea that a character is a shapeshifter and could be a man or a woman or an inanimate object. I mean, we've been kind of dealing with gender fluidity or whatever you want to call it since the inception of our medium. It's not like a super radical idea. And you know what? If there's like a politically charged sort of, if like the LGBT plus community feels like they want to glom on to Loki as their icon or something like that. I have nothing to say about that. Hey, look, it's cool, man. It's Pride Month and whatever. But for me, it's like, okay, this feels like day one noobs sort of getting the lay of the land of a character who could be a man or a woman when we trade in that as comic book fans on a daily basis when you deal with shapeshifters. But in any event, I am buying on this because I want to see all the Lokis. I want to see middle-aged curmudgeon Loki from the comic books, because before he was like this young, vigorous, sort of handsome Tom Hiddleston Loki. I think that's from the early 2000s. Us old heads that came before that are used to like hunched over Loki, who's always around like in his mid 40s or early 50s and making fists at Thor and all that kind of stuff. So we're not used to like suave Loki, but I want to see that Loki. I want to see kid Loki. I want to see female Loki. Whatever you got, give me all the Lokis. And I hope that the variant that they're chasing is a totally different Loki and not just a carbon copy twin of Tom Hiddleston. So yeah, I'm buying.
Okay. Yeah, Richard E. Grant needs to show up in the show.
Oh yes.
He
That
could very
perfect
well be
casting
old
for
King
Loki
Loki.
Classic.
Taylor, last but not least, buy, sell, or hold on the female Loki theory.
I will hold. It's possible that the variant that they're looking for is a alternate universe female version of Loki, or a disguised female version of Loki. As we said, he can change into whatever. I'm still trying to figure out if Skrulls can turn into filing cabinets or not, but we do know that Loki can turn into pretty much anything he wants. So completely possible, so hold.
Okay. Well, that concludes our section called Cannonfodder, and we'll see how these theories pan out, and join us next week for a whole new set. Before I will do my closing statement, I will give the mic to anyone who would like to add another comment. Right now, I don't see any hands. Nope. Jeff?
Oh, I just wanted to just mention that I really enjoyed being here with you guys and everything, and it was a lot of fun. That's all.
Well, we enjoyed having you here as well, and we hope you join us for more reviews of the Loki show. Lord Deathman.
Yeah, I just wanted to welcome Jeff on board. I don't know if this is his first show. I know you guys have been doing stuff on the other channel, but it was great to have you here. Great conversation. So yeah, hope to see you on future review episodes.
I really appreciate that. I really do. Thank you. And I savaged the Eternals trailer on Sakar yesterday. If anybody hasn't seen it yet, just so
Yes,
I just wanted to contrast things a little bit on Sakar really quick and stir the pot. So come check out my comments on the Eternals trailer.
Yeah, it's all good. I read some of your notes there, and I was like, that's a different perspective.
Got to make things interesting, man.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
This.
Yeah, I'd like to welcome Jeff too. It's always good to have another point of view. And also, I want to mention Archer's sticker, Vote Loki sticker.
Oh
Shout out to that.
That's tight.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Well, I think that will conclude our review of episode 1 of Loki. Before we finish, I would like to ask you to hit that subscribe button again, or the notification bell on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter, or like our Facebook page. And come and join our forum on Sakar, sakar.freeforums.net. We love to see you there. Anyway, if you do any of those things, you will never have to miss us, and we won't have to miss you. Then that's the way it should be. I want to thank you all and see you all next week for our review of episode 2. Goodbye.